Hello.
Hey.
Good to see you again. Happy New Year.
Yep, and Merry Christmas. So it's 2023, and it's episode 10 of Biweekly Podcast Season 2. And the hosts are here.
It's me, Dima Malenko, and you?
I'm Slava Rudnitsky, and we are here to talk about some, let's say, handouts from Udemy. But before that, we have a little follow-up.
Right, but yeah, the follow-up would be fast, I hope. Like last time we discussed our weekly themes, and one of the questions you asked me was, what's your sort of, I'm paraphrasing, but it was sort of, what's your definition of done for your theme? And when I was editing the episode, that got me thinking, like, do I have a definition of done? Are we supposed to have definition of done for our themes? I would be a bit more on the side of, the done or success would be like making progress towards the thing. Because if it's a year of health, for example, like the most common example, like what's done for that?
The question would be the same. How do you know you made the progress?
All right.
I think that I was mostly relying on the theme journal.
Mm-hmm.
And when you write down the theme, they ask you to write a little description there, like what the theme means, and then ideal outcomes.
All right.
You don't know how you arrive there, but you still think like, all right, so I would feel like this, I would do this, this would be like the perfect balance of something, etc.
Yep, that makes a lot of sense. I think ideal outcomes is what it is. Good stuff.
All right, and from this bright and emotional topic into something less exciting, but still something that has to be discussed. A little pre-story. A friend of mine sent me 2 PDF files, and I think you would be really curious to see what it has to say.
Were you?
I was curious, but I was disappointed, if we cut the long story short. I got these 2 presentations from Udemy that were claiming that they would like to describe the learning trends and business skills trends and stuff and what's happening there. And I tend to see such reports quite often from LinkedIn, from some other companies that do these sort of, documents, presentations, whatever. And I struggle to find something useful there. And it's always a challenge for me. So I thought maybe it's just something wrong with me. And I decided, why don't we talk about them? So we had 2 files. One of them is a shorter one, and I believe this was the free version that was spread somewhere. And then you could fill in the form, and you would get the full version, which was the English longer file that you've seen. But basically, they have the same statistics in, but just the level of details, conclusions, and stuff is slightly different. But basically, it's one is the core or the essence of the other.
Interesting. Because if that's the case, because I thought that maybe those 2 files are like just English and Russian version of the thing. But if you say that one is more detailed or fuller version of the thing, then to me it makes even less sense, this entire charade.
Exactly. But let's take a step back. And my first question would be to you, do you have any general attitude or impression of reports like this, when people say like, these are recruitment trends 2023 by blah 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 recruitment agency, or these are management trends by Odysseus Institute, or something along those lines? Like, are you curious about this stuff? Do you read it? Do you skip it? Do you actually face it at all?
I have two thoughts about this kind of things. First thought is that when people say here are the trends for something for 2023, I strongly believe that they are misusing the word trend. Because trend means some sort of law about how things kind of developed, right? We look back at what happened, and then we can draw a trend line for what was there in the data we know. And then the best thing we can do, we can assume that this trend is going to continue in the next period. It cannot be a fact that this is going to be a thing happening in 2023. So the better way to frame it, or more honest way to frame it, would be that these are the trends of 2022, which we believe are going to continue in 2023. So that when they say these are the trends for 2023, I already start disbelieving them. And the second thing would be, more often than not, I think that those things are just marketing materials for the organizations that publish them. Because unless there is sound methodology and stuff like that behind that, it would be like describing on the or reporting on the experiences or knowledge of a particular company or organization. It's like looking for a needle or for lost wallet under the lamps, but not looking in the darkness. So the picture would be skewed, incomplete, and therefore mostly useless for the pompous title of trends in industry for a given period in time. And what gives me kind of additional indication which kind of report that is if report was a truly researched with sound methodology, it would hardly be named like trending skills by company. It would have more meaningful or more valuable kind of name, if you know what I'm trying to say. Mm-hmm. So those are my typical thoughts about things like that.
And as claimed definition lords, I would like to bring in 3 terms here that I think could help us out. Would be the report, the research, and the survey, because I think that in our further discussion we will be using all of them. And these guys claim it's a report, and for me, report is a document after a research is run, mm-hmm. and you basically write a summary or you report on your findings during the research. And the level of this report can be very different. You can go in ResearchGate style when you write all the assumptions, methods, mm-hmm. Put all the data and the conclusions in, or it could be something like an article or something more advertising style, mm-hmm. when you just take the best findings or the best things that you liked and you basically promote those. The survey is purely poll, when you just question people, mm-hmm. And that's what LinkedIn does a lot. They don't provide their own statistics, but they just say, that's what people think about stuff. Mm-hmm. While research could work with any sort of data. In this case, Udemy was probably trying to do research more than a survey. So they were working with their internal data, with some statistics that people were not actually voting on, but they just took the pure number of hours watched, clicks and stuff, and took their findings and put them into this reportish kind of thing.
It's interesting. I largely agree with these definitions. Definitely on this survey is just survey is a description of what is out there, and more often than not, that would be either like observing. We saw like 3 articles published on this thing, and then kind of summarizing them, or more commonly that indeed would mean talking to people and then kind of getting like attitudes from different parts, let's say, of an industry and reporting on that. With report and research, I also kind of agree with the definitions, but I would further quantify the research thing to be something where it has a methodology and something where we put forward a hypothesis and a method for how we prove or disprove this hypothesis, and like take steps to do that. And this does not necessarily have to be an experiment or something like that. It can be like we assume that technology X is going to play a more important role next year, like what kind of data we can use to prove or disprove that, and this would be the research for me. And the report, as you say, can be final part of a sad research with this hypothesis style, but also I think it can be we asked ourselves a question or something without putting this as a hypothesis in the research style. We asks ourselves a question, did our best to find an answer to that question, maybe describe what we were checking, that we explored the complete landscape and whatnot, and then we report on our findings or conclusions on that topic. But I think it's still aligned with what you described.
All right. So let's look into the documents themselves, because I think that they look really nice. Like when I took the first glance, I saw some charts, some numbers, and it seemed really attractive. And I understand why people click on these sort of things when they see that, there is something useful that I could potentially apply at my workplace. But as we look deeper, I think that there are some things that kind of confuse me there. And I think to give the context, if in case somebody doesn't know, Udemy is basically an online course platform. And it's something like Coursera, with the difference that they've been changing the direction of their business development into selling B2B more than B2C. And their statistics shows that they've been developing this B2B market quite frequently. They sell to companies rather than to individuals right now, and they focus their marketing efforts on attracting more corporate clients rather than just people from the street who would like to learn marketing.
And there would this be a fair assumption? Because I think in the reports they refer to themselves or to the kind of area that they researched or surveyed as Udemy Business. Is this different or a subset of entire Udemy, which does this B2B selling? So where the clients for that thing are not individuals or professionals, clients for that thing are companies.
Are employees, like you could say there are users and there are customers.
Mm-hmm.
Users are employees and the customers who pay for that are companies.
All right, yeah, makes sense.
So I assume that this report was done for this domain, for the corporate segment. And at the first glance, it looks really nice because they say, these are the 5 business skills, these are the 5 tech skills that are trendy. And by trendy, they mean one of two things. One is either the demand or request on this has been growing, or just the pure number of hours that people have watched this. And in some cases, it was really tricky, because when I looked at the project management part of the skills, top 10 most popular skills, I mean the one that have been watched most often, are completely different from trending ones that have been gaining popularity. And I thought, is it actually possible? Because on the other charts, there was an overlap. Like, these are the top 10 by total hours, and like there are 3 or 5 of them that are still trending, and then some other ones that are not in the top 10 yet, but they're probably like getting there somehow. But in project management, like none of the most watched was in the trendy list, and it was confusing. I thought, like, is it statistically possible to do something like that?
I think it is. I think like the first note I put there, that their statistical methodology looks dubious at best, because they use number for that graph on popularity or demand or they call it consumption. They use the number of hours watched, and I think that's a kind of a bad proxy for comparing stuff, because let's imagine a situation where we have 2 courses, one takes 10 hours and one course is like just a short thing of 2 hours. If we get one person, just like one person take one course and another person taking another course, which just means like very small increment in users or people who took those educational classes, the number of hours watched would be 5x on the first one. But it's not like it. I think it's a bad comparison, because when people choose a course, they are sort of stuck with it and they consume all the hours it has to offer. and that can easily skew the statistics. And one more thing on statistics, like it is indeed possible, by interpreting data in different ways to arrive at different results. It is a kind of fairly known fact, and it has a name of Simpson paradox. I would encourage everyone to check the Wikipedia page about this stuff. But the idea there is that if we have data for, let's say, a performance of a drug for a given disease, and variations of the drugs and variations of the disease, depending on how we cut those slices, under certain conditions, it can be shown that drug A is the best drug. But if we slice the data in a different way, it can be the reverse, that drug B is the better drug for this disease. It would take a little more time for me to explain, and I'm probably not ready to do that on the spot, but it is not impossible to have such weird statistical effects, and it requires effort to correct for that, or to account for that in more like serious research.
Then do you think that the methodology should some kind of exclude such sort of things? As an example, there is this article about, or page about managing IT infrastructure, and one of the top 10 things there, trending things, is Databricks, which has been growing 2,161%, and still didn't get to the top 10.
Yeah, that's super weird. And then there can be multiple different variables for that influence the data there. It can be that, hey, the Databricks, I honestly don't know what it is. It sounds to me like a technology or platform or something for working with data, and it very well can be that this is a next generation of data tooling provided by certain company. And if that company said that, hey, we are deprecating and retiring our previous version of technology, and everything, like all the support and all the development effort we will put into the Databricks, it creates a huge incentive for all of its clients to move away from the old thing onto Databricks, which would create a great demand for this skill, or this knowledge would be reflected in Udemy. But this does not exactly represent that this is the most important or the most demanded technology for the next period of time.
But still, this was probably one of the most useful parts of these reports, because when I looked at these development aspects, some things are obvious. This Python, Java, React, JavaScript things by popularity, I've heard about the statistics, and it kind of matches the reality. And then also some new words that I didn't know, like Helm, were the reasons to Google something and see, like, now we see what this word means. And it's been growing, so it probably means that some companies or enterprises are switching there. And I would say that such reports could be potentially a good starting point for your own research or Googling, if you're interested in technologies or would like to stay in the loop with the terminology that is used, at least during the hiring process. And one of the interesting facts, I think it's part of the economic recession, that in the development, the top trending skill was preparation for the technical interviews, plus 1,012%.
Yeah, that was curious. And then also how they call it this skill. Maybe that is a skill, but yeah, I guess some of the categories that they've used seem to be on the different levels. Like in these technical skills, where the Databricks is at the top, we kind of take it to me that Databricks is maybe a particular technology, but then there is something like business-driven development, which is on a kind of different thing entirely. And should they even be in one category? Not exactly clear.
That's exactly what I thought when I was looking on this fuller file, bigger file, on page 31. It had this data analysis section there. And they put top 10 surgeon personal skills and top 10 consumed personal skills. And when I looked at the titles there, I thought, maybe they're not really skills. Because some of them are just English grammar or English language, which is part of English language. Like grammar, it's a sub-level, or business English is a subdomain of English language. How can these three be three different categories there? I can totally understand why taking IELTS could be a separate category. That's an exam, that's a preparation, that's a set of skills. Why Spanish language and English language could be two separate skill sets. That makes sense. But let's look at the other column. Self-esteem.
Growth mindset.
Seriously.
Yeah.
Or in the column of top 10 consumed, confidence.
Yeah.
How is that a skill?
It doesn't make too much sense.
But my favorite here is the 10th one, personal development.
Top 10 consumed personal skills, personal development. Wouldn't taking any course be personal development?
Pretty much. So I'm really curious what's the full list of the categories and how do they actually where do they take them from? Because in my understanding, in reports like this, you would expect to have the similar kind of things in the list, like languages, technologies, trends, exams, certifications, some things. And if they start putting in the categories, like psychology, self-esteem, confidence, maybe they should take the skills out of those, not just the, titles.
Yeah,
I don't know.
To me, it kind of boils down to the thing which we probably will never know about what was the purpose or what was the goal that creators of this report had in mind when they're working on it. Because it seems to me that the goal they had was to provide a kind of additional marketing opportunity for the company. So the for them the value is not in the data or what the data says. It's just it says we have this pretty slide deck to get you hooked to look deeper into what we have to offer because it's great. And if you don't get what we offer, we will be in financial struggle next year. So you'd better go and look and check out what are the courses that we have to offer. The more so they have such a beautiful representation with percentages and top tens and quotations from our people about how important that stuff is.
Dima, I would only correct one thing. Not we will be in the financial struggle, but we will stay in the financial struggle because Udemy has been, what's the opposite for profitable? Has been losing quite a lot of investments and money and profits for years now. It hasn't get to any ROI point at all, and we'll talk about that a bit later. But I think I have one more thing to say about the doc itself, and it's the trends part. In the full English version, there are slides from 5 to 11, which describe 3 main trends: culture, agility, and delivery.
Yeah.
I have no idea how it is connected to anything or how it is actually, there is no understanding why these things are here. There are some random numbers there, and I believe these numbers are not really related to any of the Udemy research or statistics or analytics that they've done. I tried to connect it with some points later on, in the skills learned, into some conclusions, but there was nothing. So it's just the section with 3 fancy words that is totally not related to anything in the report below. And I like the words. I mean, they're nice. Delivery. I know many people who like the word delivery. Culture. A good word. I believe it can be trendy, but why do you think it's a top trend? How you landed on these conclusions, that's tricky. But I understand that many people who look at these slides, they will actually believe it because there is the word Udemy, there are some beautiful graphs and charts, there are some numbers and names. So technically, you could say that, there is a title, Chief Learning Officer of Udemy, Melissa, who wrote an article of 5 paragraphs about culture. Why is it a trend?
Yeah. I agree. I would take this to kind of in support of the theory that this is more of a marketing material than anything else. And I think maybe the thinking that went into this, like in the structure of our episodes in the beginning, we typically have this section where we want to say, when we put forward the topic, we want to discuss like why this topic is important. And I guess they try to follow a similar pattern of essay writing where you had to have motivation for why you're writing this entire thing. And they use this initial section in lieu of that, like saying, there are trends in the bigger industry, and then connect that somehow to learning, and then say, hey, now that we are talking about learning, here's what we are doing, and like what we are observing from our side. But it indeed felt a lot like corporate, like high level abstract corporate speak a lot. And when you try, I think it probably is meant, if it is meant, it is meant to be skimmed through rather than read by people to get them thinking about what they read. It's more of a, like, I guess it has to evoke emotional response. Yes, this thing is important. Let's see what's the next step, what we can do. But then if you try to look deeper into what they say, or maybe link, even when they say something and they link to an article kind of supporting that, you may click there and see no clear indication that article actually supports the point that they're making. But I think that's common for this kind of documents anyway.
Well, one thing that I potentially think could save this document would be using the actual numbers. Like if they showed how many numbers in total were watched in Java or in any other text, that could be really curious. Like for learning statistics, you could say that like users of Udemy have watched total of 27 million hours of content on this topic. That would be something, at least.
Right, or maybe something where I'm sure they must have like finishing survey, post-completion surveys or something like that, where they would ask people like, was this useful or something like that. It's like, what if they could do a survey and ask the past participants or something like that, like after some period in time, and ask them like, was this useful? Did you use this skill in your work and stuff like that, and report on that data? That would be super interesting to see as well, to see how high like self-esteem and personal development rank on that, because that may show something that we would not expect, that people see that the challenges they face are not best addressed by another course on how to use Java and object-oriented programming, but rather maybe on soft skills or like communication, email writing, and that or other thing.
I have two more things to discuss apart from the documents themselves. So maybe if there is something you would like to add about the docs, let's do it now before we move on.
Yeah, just one thing. You see how we maybe like mocked them for this document a little bit, but on the other hand, one can see kind of more or less real need for why companies put out something like this. And depending on the size of the company, I think the better style would be to make this thing more personal, if you know what I'm trying to say. Like if there were more voice from the company itself, like we believe in these things, these are our values, this is what we observed in 2022 with respect for how we are doing things, this is how we are going to do things in 2023. I think, at least for me, it would be, my response to that would be a lot more favorable and a lot more interested in what they have to say. But here is just such a faceless set of data trying to scream that we are great, we are doing something useful, come go do business with us. So it, for people like me, it can play kind of the opposite role. Instead of attracting, that would kind of detract me from following their word or their lead.
So 2 things I wanted to get into was the Udemy business model at the first place, and my attitude and my question maybe to you about this thing. And secondly, about the similar documents and research, but in Savvy context.
Mm-hmm.
But let's start with Udemy. While I was waiting for the recording, I started Googling like what's actually happening with Udemy. Like, are they profitable? What's been happening for the past few years? And I found a few quite worrying pieces of statistics. Firstly, Udemy has been attracting investments, but spending more than they have attracted for multiple years. So their deficit of the budget is hundreds of millions, and it seems to be growing. Like, I don't see how this tendency is going to change anytime soon. Their entire marketing budget in 2022 was bigger than their investment and income that they generated together. At the same time, their market capitalization is $1.6 billion. And this is something that is mind-blowing. Like, I don't really buy it. Maybe I'm too old. Maybe I'm just not into investment. But how can a company that has not been generating any profit, like, let's say Tesla as an example, like, the money they spend is very, very unrelated to their capitalization and the way people estimate these things. I understand when it's something like Facebook, there is a lot of value that stands like in between, like the influence, the reputation, the brand itself. When I think about Udemy, if somebody buys Udemy, let's say Facebook buys Udemy, I can say that they really get an asset that is worth 1.6 billion, considering that it's like it loses money. Like, if you even don't change anything, you will keep losing money. And what does it give you? What does it bring you? What's the purpose? Because when you think of a business, even in the context of a small enterprise, a small enterprise is counterintuitive, a small business or a small company, you think about the value. I understand that for the bigger institutions, maybe it's different, but it just doesn't, I don't get it. Maybe you could give me an alternative opinion on, like, why is it so? Why is it okay to do such sort of businesses?
Well, I can try. We first need to make a disclaimer that this is not a financial or investment advice. But I think my take on this is that, like, first, maybe like very small need. Like, when you say how is this okay, I think it's not a matter of okay or not okay. Like, if this thing is happening, then it's happening, and then we may try to understand how it happens. I think the 2 points I would want to start with would be that I think Udemy, I have very little knowledge of their history and stuff like that, but I think that they started as a startup, like, right, in maybe some 5 or so years ago. And when
2010, it's 12 years ago.
12 years ago. And when startups start, they typically start, and especially they've got investment already, so they were a startup. And when startups start, they start with an idea that can potentially work, and this is how they get that they get investment, and then they use this money to find this product market fit for their idea and figure out, like, this kind of sort of makes sense. Can we make it work, or can we turn this into real business? And throughout this whole part of looking for this product market fit, it's not uncommon, after all this of looking for product market fit, where the company would lose money trying to find that product market fit. So that way, I'm not too kind of surprised to see that. So they despite their age, they may still be in this phase. And if investors kind of believe that there is something, that there is a potential to find this product market fit and do something good. If they believe in that, they can keep investing. And typically the stock price and capitalization is also a reflection of trust of investors. It is, well, depending on the situation, it can be different, but it more often than not represents the trust of investors in the future of the company, rather than is a reflection of their current financial state. And
may I clarify the way I understood it? So before we move on, so basically what you're saying, that there are two potential ways here. One way is the company is making a product that has perspectives, and you think that maybe in the future it will start generating profit, but it just takes 10 years, and then it will, like SpaceX, like you have to invest a lot, and then it will pay back. And secondly, potentially, I'm not sure you mentioned it, but I think it's possible that the company is developing a technology that can be used by other businesses or other aspects, like TikTok thing. They've been developing some sort of algorithm, or Instagram at some point.
Right.
And some technologies that have been used there could be applied on main Facebook platform or somewhere else. And these are two major reasons. And then there is some public opinion, like what do people think, what do investors think, what do somebody thinks. And this public opinion is tricky. Like, is it related to the first two aspects about potential profit and technology? Or it's just like Elon Musk is a popular guy, let's buy Tesla because he's been doing some great stuff and it's his company, he loves it, and I just need extra 10,000 Tesla shares.
Yeah, I think, like first of all, I think it can be any of those things, right? That there are, like the when we are talking about the stock market, the investors there come in all sorts and colors and shapes. Some are the emotional, like believers, like, oh, I believe in this cause and I would support it, or I think it is going to skyrocket in price or valuation later on, so I'll put my money there. Some are more conservative, looking more at like financial data and like market predictions and like the boring stuff. Some are just pure speculators, where they see, like they try to ride the micro trends and whatnot. So it, like, all of those things can be true at the same time, just because the space is so vast. And specifically for Udemy and this Udemy business thing, I think that this is also a fairly common pattern for the startup development kind of life cycle, where it would initially start as a consumer kind of technology for individual users. And I think this is where, like, Coursera and Udemy, they all, I think, started there. Like, we develop great courses or great technology to provide educational materials, and we will attract as many users to partake or participate in our platform as we can, and use that number as leverage to get more investment. But that is just the stage where they burn money to get more exposure and more market share, if you will. But then when time comes to start actually making money, it's like getting some revenue and profits, it is not uncommon for startups to figure out, selling to individual users is difficult. You cannot sell a lot or with expensive price tag, and it can be more lucrative to start selling the same thing to businesses, because it's easier in some aspects and for certain things. So from that point of view, this Udemy business thing does not come to me as a huge surprise. It's like seems like a natural pivot for that.
I remember there was this story with Google Glass, then when they created the smart glasses, and then they realized that it's too expensive for B2C sales, and they switched to logistics companies, so you could scan the codes on the packages.
With Microsoft, right? Yeah, Microsoft HoloLens followed the same path, right?
Yeah, that makes sense. But with the trick here is that I think that Udemy and Coursera haven't actually developed any special technology that is worth 1.6 billion, because basically pretty much any online course created by, I don't know, WordPress standard thing has pretty much the same functional elements. Like I've taken courses both at Coursera and Udemy. Apart from that, I tried less popular platforms like edX and some others. And I believe that there are more engaging and interesting tech solutions right now than these two. But these two keep getting a lot of marketing support and investments. And I think that from ed tech perspective, they're kind of useless. I can see that even Khan Academy, with their concept of relearning material until you get it, like you don't move on to the next stage before you show that you fully understand this stage, makes much more sense to me. I can understand why people would pay for this, why it makes the difference. Or let's say there is a platform named Rise. They make this interactive storytelling courses when it's fancy, nice, engaging, interesting, and it provides multiple tools for a course developer. While Udemy still seems pretty constrained. Like there are a lot of restrictions for a person. You can just make the video and like 3 types of tests. That's pretty much all you have. And I'm kind of confused here.
Well,
maybe.
Yeah, I think, remember on one of the points, events, we had this 5 pillars of business thingy, right? And this is not directly related to that, but I think that that's a mindset or framing for this thinking. The valuation of the company can come from different from different things, and depending on the stage of the company and the type of the company, the value, even there are different methods for calculating the valuation of a company. And one of the methods, for example, includes the user base of the company. Regardless of the technology it has and the value of the technology, if the user base of the company is large or huge, that means that the company has contacts of those people who have proven interest in what the company has to offer. That number can influence the valuation greatly. And I think, I would think from where I sit, that for things like Coursera and Udemy, this number would play a significant role in the valuation number. And here also it can be that if they switched into this B2B segment and they have contracts, maybe longer term contracts with big enterprises, that can also be a thing that ups their valuation, even though the technology itself is kind of maybe crappy, because it starts playing a lot less. The technology itself starts playing a lot less as the company kind of matures and stuff.
All right, let's make a thought experiment here. According to the Wikipedia page of Udemy, their user base right now is 57 million students. We know that probably all of us have an account at Udemy and Coursera, but we are not really active users. Like, I assume that the percentage is lower, but just like for the experiment, let's assume that every 5th account is alive. So it makes not 57, but let's say 12. 12 million as of active users, including business and some B2C areas. Their market cap, once again, is 1.6 billion, which means that if you buy Udemy as business for their user base, and then you just, I don't know, can you shell off or just, I don't know, minimize all the dead accounts and get to the people who actually read your emails or come to your platform to see some, I don't know, ads or communications, you basically pay something like $100+ just to talk to people who have been using this platform, to a person. In terms of marketing, that's a huge budget. Like it's not cents, it's not dollars, it's not tens or dozens of dollars, it's hundreds of dollars. To talk to one user. And I'm not sure it makes much sense. So the technology is nothing special. And the user base is not huge. I mean, it's not massive. And I'm not sure about the loyalty that people get towards platforms like Coursera and Udemy.
Well, I cannot even pretend that I have even the slightest idea about the answers to these questions, but I think I would have an idea about figuring out answers to those. So like from what I look at now in Google, a Google search, right? Of all things, like the first thing I did, there is this little widget with information about Udemy, and it says that it is a publicly traded company, right? So this is where their valuation is coming from, and as public traded company, they are obliged to publish quarterly earning reports. So
mostly losing reports. Yeah.
Well, okay, they call them earning reports anyway, I think. And so the first step I would take to better understand their business and where the valuation is coming from would be to read the latest or to at least skim through their latest earnings report and read what analytics, like how the stock price moved after that and what the analysts were saying about that. Because maybe even though they are losing now, they can be on a positive trend with growth of their revenue or something like that, or they signed a big contract with a big player, or like there can be different things that influence that, and getting more information about this can help better understand this thing. But it all, of course, does not exclude the fact that this can be just a wickedly incorrect valuation, or valuation that is unsupported by anything else. Because, for example, in case of Amazon, right, we know that Amazon is a huge, like one of the top N businesses on the planet, but for a longer time they were always reporting losses on their earning reports, which did not prevent their stock price from going up and up and up, because this, like they or Jeff Bezos, they managed to persuade investors that no, that's actually, like, our losses are not a bad thing. It's like we are reinvesting back.
I agree with you here, and it makes total sense. Like when I look at some of our clients, like Grammarly or Reface, I understand that these guys work on technology, and even if they never make profits, they're still making something that will be used by some other algorithms or companies or products in the future. Like they're building up the future or of technologies somewhere. Some companies are preparing for the market that are not there yet. Maybe I told you about these deep space industries guys. They're creating this asteroid mining hardware. Like that's dozens of years from making any profit, but I understand why they would be losing money right now, investing into research, into development to get there. That makes total sense. I can understand that. So I don't mind losses or not being profitable for a while, if I can understand why. And for such businesses, I just can't. I can't seem to find the value.
Well, maybe we can take this as a homework and try to figure out, like, where's the value in Udemy, and does it justify the current capitalization and stock price for the company?
All right, and let's probably move on to my second question. It's not actually a question, it's probably a thought again. My marketing team and I were thinking about making a research. And what we wanted to look at was how Ukrainian tech companies evaluate the results of their learning. How they assess language skills, how they assess soft skills, how they assess tech skills, how it is run, what are the methods, what are the outcomes, who uses this data, how it is stored, how it is collected, how it is used, to cut the long story short. And on one hand, we need this information by ourselves because we would like to understand who are our potential customers for specific assessment services, who, like, what are the numbers that are important for buyers of our soft skills training programs and language training programs, etc. And I think that this research could be actually useful for HR people out there. Like if they look like, guys, that's the statistics, that's what other people do with this data. That's what this L&D statistics is about. And there were a few challenges that we faced there, that people are not really willing to talk about this stuff openly. Like you have to survey a number of people.
Right.
The ones that are already our customers, firstly, we kind of know what they do because we work with their systems and they are our customers, but we can talk to them. People who we don't know are really hard to engage. Like it's really hard to get trustful conversation with a person to share like how the processes are built or what data is collected, even without showing the data, even without disclosing some secrets. And it's really hard to get something that would look like a significant number of participants in the survey to publish some sort of results. So we got stuck in the situation when our clients helped us. We got some warm references from them to talk to someone else, but then our aimed number of 100 companies that we wanted to interview was never reached. Maybe it's because of the war and some different priorities and stuff. We will probably come back to this idea later on. But we faced this blocker, I'd say. How did this idea sound to you, like from the outside? Does it sound reasonable, or it's something that Udemy does, just the marketing blah 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 material that is useful only for Udemy and their clients?
I think it sounds interesting, or at least intriguing in some sense, and I think I'm not sure I fully get who would be the people who can benefit from the results of that survey. Would that be your peers, like other learning and development companies, or would that be your clients? And it can go both ways. Like it can be research that's helpful for you and a company like yours, or it can be research that's useful for clients of educational service providers. So no, it doesn't. To me, it doesn't sound like marketing mumbo jumbo. At least the way you describe it, because you're not saying, "Hey, we want to create this additional informational opportunity for us and kind of give it more credibility by engaging some other people in it." Like from what you're describing, it sounds like a genuine research trying to understand or answer certain questions. So that kind of makes sense to me.
Yeah, I think that guys in Udemy didn't say that we would like to make this informational splash out there. Somebody probably honestly believed that it's useful. The question is why and how. And why I ask you about this, because while I was reading this Udemy thing, I thought, aren't I investing into something like this right now? Like, am I going to build another PDF file that would be just fancy and people will see the top 3 numbers or just some highlighted words, skim it by diagonal, and nobody will actually read it fully? Because that's the reading experience that I used to do for such reports previously. And it made me question my assumption that it will be useful for HRs, because basically my first thought was like, we lack L&D analytics on the Ukrainian market. Like there is not much statistics out there at all. And if we collect some, that might be useful for decision makers to see whether they're on the right track, or what the other people are doing, or what are the tendencies and technologies that are used. How do people use skilled grade matrices, evaluation systems, outside assessment, and other tools that potentially help L&D and HR people. But I kind of doubt that people will read it now after we discussed it. And I still find it fascinating to figure it out. But I'm not sure whether I should publish it or try to promote it somehow.
That's a great question. I now feel a little bit bad that I maybe played the role into kind of devaluing the work that you did. I think one idea that I would have about this and about the issue of trust, because I think I can see how, if like earlier when I was like running my own company, someone approached me with questions like this, one of the things that will be in the back of my mind, am I going to be taken advantage of? In this case, am I going just to play a role in someone else's cause to promote themselves? Which I would feel bad about this. And I think one way of addressing the trust issue that I can think of would be turning a point in time event, like publishing a report, where you have to resolve or push people to do something before that point in time, to turn it from point in time into a process. So what if the report or the initial version of a report is portrayed as just a snapshot of the data we've collected so far, but then keep this thing open for more people to respond or to participate, and kind of be honest about the current state of it and turn it into a process. And then when people see that, hey, there were other people who submitted their data and they were like, this thing is fair and honest and it makes sense, and we can do our share at improving the understanding of the entire landscape by providing our piece of data, they would be more inclined to do so. And initially, even if you just have 5 people who responded, you can be like honest about it. We've got 5 people who responded. This is what we've got so far. But we think that this data is incomplete because we would expect in an abstract that like area B or the topic to be covered or more popular. And we think that maybe it's not covered or more popular or not reflected in our report just because we've got only 5 people in the data set. If you're using this, can you please respond to this questionnaire or survey so that we all get a bigger, better, fuller picture of what's going on? I think it can be done to the benefit of everyone involved.
We'll see. Because currently we are going with an interview rather than survey, because companies are different, and it's really hard to make the standard set of questions that wouldn't irritate or annoy people while they're filling it. So we try to do it in a 25-minute interview with like an algorithm of questions that we ask, and then we script those and get them into the public. But the thing that we faced, one of the challenges was the communication platform. Luckily for us, we have a few closed groups and publics where L&D and HR people are in, and we have some level of reputation there, and that's where we got our first 20 participants. But I think that to get it to something significant, something trustful, our assumption was about 100 companies. We need some extra platforms, and I can't seem to find the place where I can come and say, honestly, guys, this is what we're doing, this is why we're doing it. Please come and join if you'd like. Maybe I need some stronger marketing and networking skills to get such project done.
It can be. Well, I can also cannot say by any stretch of imagination that like the B2B marketing or outreach are my stronger skills, but something like that would, I think, be helpful and useful. And maybe on the internet there might be some stories of how people tried to do that, like build.
That was a total disappointment. Like I started looking for stuff, and people basically make this what do you name, marketing blah blah think about the way to get people into the marketing research. I bought a few books, but they're still in the way about the methods. I really liked the way they were described by Financial Times about marketing researchers, but it will take a while. But we're not in a hurry, in fact, but we'll see. I'll keep you in the loop about this initiative. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah, one idea that just came to my mind could be that, like, to see look for ways to create for you to create value for those people who participate, and maybe those people who already participated, you can like talk to them and ask like, hey, what kind of value you can derive from it? Like, what kind of value we can give you back for this, and then maybe put that piece of value as a cornerstone for this whole exercise with the hope that maybe this can attract more respondents.
That's actually counterintuitive, because people who took the interviews,
Mm-hmm.
they were grateful for the questions, because the questions made them think about some aspects that were their blind spots. But it's really hard to communicate to people who haven't been at the interview that these sorts of questions will help you, because what if they don't? How do you say that? And etc. And the other thing that we were suggesting, and it seemed to me like an advantage, that if you'd like to, we'll show you the report. And if you like the way it looks, we can get your logo on it and like show the partners page there with all the companies who would like to be publicly highlighted that they were part of this survey. And it scared people much more than I expected. Like, I thought it would be an advantage to make a promo activity for their HR brand, but it turned out that people don't want even to consider being public in such sort of things. That was very unexpected for me.
Interesting.
We'll see. Another day, another challenge, as they say.
Right, but we will wish you the best of luck on this journey.
Yeah, I hope I don't end up with something marketing and empty. And our episode would be a point of reference if I do.
All right.
So what's the next episode about?
I think the next episode we are going to discuss like ideas and then approaches to tactical planning. We were talking about themes and stuff where we took a longer term perspective at things at our lives and bigger goals. But I would want to talk about more tactical things, like how do you or I plan our days, our weeks, and put the stuff that we have to do into that. What are the challenges? What are the approaches? And what are the methods and tools that can make this process more effective? Because this is one of the things that kind of part of my whatever it is, like season of structure or discipline. I don't remember how I call this. So I'm trying to find better ways to organize my day-to-day activities to be more in line with how I think I should be going about them.
Cool. I'm looking forward to that.
Right. Me too.
And that will be in about 2 weeks from now?
Yeah, I think so.
Hopefully good weeks.
Yep. Good weeks.